Guys, welcome to the Weave Project. Hopefully you enjoy this video and I'm going to teach you how to weave a stool out of Danish cord, which is a bloody worthwhile thing to do. Who wouldn't want to do that? You'd have to be mental. You'd have to be batshit fucking crazy, which I know that you are not. So the first thing you want to do is put a towel or an old sheet down on the table. I don't want you scratching that nice paint on the legs, okay? Couldn't care less about your table. So these stainless steel components have to go in first. Now, I know I said in the brand card that they slide together smooth and silky as butter. That it might have been a slight lie. Hopefully they do for you. I noticed that a couple of them just had a little bit of they were a little bit funky. They maybe just get a little bit jammed. You don't want them going together with like one side going in further than the other. You want them to be quite even. So when you go to slide them together, just maybe give it a bit of a wiggle. If you feel like one's going in too far, then just back it off a little bit, give it a bit of a tap, and then they should go together pretty good. All right, yellow envelope. What do we got? We've got some stainless steel screws, we've got some black screws, we've got a couple Allen keys. By the way, don't stress if you've only got one, okay? I had to change the screws for some of the packages because I had the size up in stainless steel screws and I ran out of the smaller size. Don't stress, if you've only got one Allen key, it'll work for all of the screws. If you've got two, use the smaller one for the stainless screws and the bigger one for the black screws, but either way, you'll be just hunky bloody dozer. Couple of cup washers. This is a weaving spike made out of beech, and this is the Danish cord shuttle. So should be good. So the first thing you want to do is you want to get your cup washer and stick one of the black screws through it with the concave side facing up. So you should see the screw head will bed down nicely in the top of that cup washer as you screw it in. So you want to screw it into the furthermost hole, the one that's closest to the edge. There should be one on each timber component closest to the end. So screw them down, don't like crank the hell out of it, just get it down to the bottom and tighten it just slightly and then just leave it, okay? Seems arbitrary and strange, like there would be no need for this, but just bear with me, there is a reason for it, it will come to light, yeah. So the next thing you want to do is you want to put them facing with the groove up on the table. Now, this is really important. You want to have the black screw bit facing inward on both of them. If you like took the timber components and flipped them around the other way, then they'd both be facing out. Bad vibe, don't do that. You notice these stainless steel components are actually slightly too short for the timber component to fit between the legs. Now, that's actually deliberate. That's so that you can get a really nice snug fit. So when you go to push the steel frame down into those grooves of the timber components, you want to kind of like push it down and wiggle it a little bit. And what you'll notice is the gap where the stainless steel component joins with the steel bit actually starts to open up just a tiny bit. And that's actually good. It means that you get a really nice snug fit. All right, you'll be screwing it together with these stainless steel screws. You just screw them all in one by one. Don't go all the way tight. Just get them down to nearly and then just go around and tighten them one by one. Now the next thing is this little cord stay here. Now there's 4 of these. Now they all sit on the outside holes that are closest to the leg. So leave those holes free and then use these cord stays with a little return facing up. They'll sit at a tiny little bit of an angle because there's a bit of a weld there, but that's fine. Just push them in as straight as you can. Be careful when you're screwing in with the Allen key. You might want to have it upright rather than using the short end to screw in the screws. The big long arm will actually bump into the powder coat and give a bit of a scratch. So I prefer the short end. I also find that it's a good way of setting the tightness of the screws because you can't crank it too hard. Flip it over, give it a bit of a rub for good luck, and let's load the shuttle up. So you're gonna have 3 Danish cord spools in your box. Now, the first one that you wanna use is called base. So grab the base one. My preference is to put it down on the floor, cut the 4 little ties, and then take the strand that's the closest to the inside of the coil, and then just pull it from the center. Hopefully it comes out pretty nice. If it gets a bit of a tangle, there's not much you can do, but hopefully it behaves okay for you. So the idea is you want to just get a little 6-inch sort of section like that, and you use the little notch in one end to push it down. That'll keep the Danish cord attached to the shuttle so it's not going to come flying off and end up with this 3-foot long sort of flyaway. When you're loading up the shuttle, you want to fill up as much of the negative space inside that circle as you can. You want to kind of like fill that up with Danish cord and then keep on filling it as you go. You can pull down hard when you're trying to push it into the various negative space parts. But you just want to be careful that when you come around this end, you don't crank it so hard that the shuttle starts to bend like a banana. So just try and get that balance right. So you should be able to get the whole base onto the shuttle. If you can't, if you need to cut it, that's okay. There's a knot that I am going to show you that you can use to join it if you have to. All right, so this is a special knot for joining the Danish cord to the steel part of the frame. So get the Danish cord from under the rail on the far left-hand side, and then you just want to grab it sort of somewhere in the middle, in between those two leg frame components. What you want to do then is you want to grab the Danish cord and twist it backwards so that it starts to delaminate and you get 3 strands instead of 1. And then you just poke it between those strands, and essentially now you've got it sort of trapped inside the cord itself. And then all you got to do is it's just a granny knot like this around the whole shebang, and that will just keep it good as. It's not going to slip, it's not going to come free, it's attached, and there's no knot anywhere near the steel frame, so it won't look ugly, which is bloody great. All right, so you just want to push the cord over, you start winding it on there. There's 2 different ways you can do this. You can either put it on tight like this, or, and this is table height by the way, this is comfortable for me, but I'm a big tall bastard, so it might be a little bit uncomfortable for you. You can also do it on the floor. I wanted to showcase this just to prove that it's possible. So you can sit in a chair, you can sit on the rug, you can, chill on the front lawn, sit on the, roof or whatever. This is the other strategy I wanted to show you. You actually wind it on loose and then you come through and you tighten it, okay? So there's 2 different ways of doing that, whichever one works for you. Now this weaving spike here, I tend to use this for all sorts of things. You'll notice on the back there, it's got a bit of a sharp edge. Now that's so that you can turn it around and you can use the back to sort of manipulate the Danish cord. What I'm doing here is I'm just pushing the cord up close to the timber part. You want to have it sitting almost right up against it, but maybe just like a millimeter off so they're not like fully touching. So you can just use the weaving spike to kind of get it there. Now when you get to the end here, the idea is you want to get almost to the end, so you maybe like 2 strands thickness away, maybe like 1, almost a centimeter, say. And then you actually clip it there, okay, you can use this clip, and then you actually continue, do another couple of strands loosely, all right? And then I'll show you what you do next. We're actually going to use the exact same knot as you guys used to start, okay? Now it's a little bit different because this time it's going to be under tension, but it's pretty doable. It's a little bit fiddly, but you'll be fine. I want you to hold the free end of the cord in one hand. If it's too long, cut it off. Give yourself about a foot or so. And then while you're holding that here, I want you to fish down and grab the bottom strand. See, this one right here. I'm kind of indicating it with my hand. And once you've isolated that, don't worry, you can sort of like loosen it all up because that clip there is going to hold it sturdy. So once you've done that, I want you to do the twisty thing and put it through just the same way as you did before. You can see it's right in the middle there, in between the 2 leg units. That's kind of where you want it. So the knot is right in between the 2 leg units. So then just really crank the shit out of it. You want to crank it pretty hard here, as hard as you can, guys. Once you've done that, so then you've given it a good crank, you're going to fish down and grab that bit where it passes through, and you just want to pinch it hard so it can't slip at all. And then you're going to have to kind of one-hand this sort of granny knot here. It's a little bit fiddly, but give it a go. You can see there, it's doable. Might take you a couple of goes, that's okay. And you just want to give it a good tighten, a bit of a wiggle. You see that? I wasn't sure whether to put this bit in here. This is something I like to do because I'm a overly pedantic weirdo, but you can do it as well if that describes you. This is to tighten the strands that are closest to the timber bits. I like to have the strands that are on the outside really nice and tight so that they don't sort of drift and start sort of like wobbling about and whatever. If I'm going to have looser strands, I'd rather that they're in closer to the inside. So what I like to do is I just tighten the hell out of the one that's at the end there just by pulling really hard the strand that's right next to the knot. And then I pull the one that's right next to it, but slightly less hard. And then I pull the one that's next to that, slightly less hard. And after about 5 or 6 strands, I'm not putting any pressure on it at all, and then I just let go. And what I've done is I've kind of faded that tension down into the Danish cord. You don't have to do it. It's not necessary. It's just me being a complete psycho. Don't worry about it. So get top A, put it on your shuttle. So now you just want to get that black screw and untighten it up until the head is around about the level of the Danish cord or a little bit higher. Now this is really fiddly, but you got to get that cup washer up. You got to get it up around the head. What you want to do is you want to have the tag end next to the leg, okay? And then the main line, which should be wrapped around your shuttle, closest to the middle of the stool. So you just want to grab a good pinch of it, and then while you're holding it nice and firm, crank that screw back down, okay? It's pretty basic really. You just want to make sure that the bits of cord don't sort of like fan out and come out while you're screwing it down. So a little bit of a pinch like that will keep it all together and stop them from getting caught under the washer and spinning and coming flying out or whatever. That's going to be super sturdy and it's going to stay there forever. So you want to get that tag end, which as I said was closest to that leg, and you just want to tuck it through there. You just got to get it out of the way a little bit. You don't have to like do anything crazy neat to make it super nice. You just got to tuck it out of your way. It'll get dealt with in a second. Now this bit here is really important. All you got to do is you got to get that main line and pop it over that little cord stay. All right, it's probably going to come off that little cord stay. That's okay. You can pop it on again just before you weave. Now, this part here, I usually just measure the cord, figure out where the center is, and just go in through the top, okay? This, once again, is kind of a pedantic point, but I think it's worth thinking about. Here on the edge, there's a little gap that goes all the way through. I don't like this as much because when you go to weave it, that can open up and start to show a big sort of like green stripe. I prefer to have it like this. Just move one strand to the left or right, like this, and you'll see that now you've got like a diagonal line. It just helps it to look a little bit better at the end in my incredibly anal and pedantic view. Okay, so you notice on the back there it's got two strands. That's kind of how it looks. That's good. So that's my suggestion. Stick the spike in. This is where you really want to make sure that that cord stay, it's on the correct side. So that's the side that's closest to the center of the stool. And you just really want to stick that shuttle through. You can see I'm holding the cord there to make sure it isn't coming flying off. If it does, it's not a big deal because you can always just pop it back over that cord stay again. So it just goes in through the middle, over the rail, back through the middle, over the rail, and look, that's just going to be your life. You know, I just hope that you enjoy repetitive things. I personally love them. I like being bored. I hate doing things. This is how the shuttle is designed to go through. Basically, it's designed for the arms to be long enough to go through like this with it sideways, and then you spin it, and it should just go cruising through with these nice, silky smooth sides there. Designed to just sort of glide through. You're going to have to tilt it a little bit as it comes out the top because as it comes out the bottom because it's a little bit too long. It'll sort of bump straight into the floor. So just tilt it a bit, or you can tilt the stool a bit like that. Either way, it works a treat. So you see here, I'm just winding it on loose, okay? I've got that first little strand a little bit taut, not too crazy, but a bit, but I'm just winding it on loose to start with. So now what I do is I start tightening it up, okay? Now you'll see here that I'm really cranking the shit out of it, okay? I'm really going for it, all right? Like the tighter you can get it, the better. You won't be able to snap it. Just give it kind of a good heave-ho, you know? And that's what'll give you the best result. You also want to start moving those strands down a little bit, but where the strands on the timber rail, you don't want to have them actually touching. You want to have them about a cord thickness apart from each other, and there's a reason for that. I'll go through that in a second. So now you've got your timber spike, okay, your weaving spike, and I just want you to kind of like start pushing the strands together, first on the sides there, and then you just get your thumb in there to hold it so that it doesn't go whack right out. Thumb hold it, and then just give it a good heave-ho. You want to push it as hard as you can in that central seam. In fact, you really have to give it some zhuzh, okay? You've really got to give it to it, all right? But then when you flip the weaving spike around and use the back end on the timber parts, you just want to get it so the cords are kind of touching each other and just push them over a little bit. If you crank the absolute shit out of it, you'll push them in too tight. You might want to just check at this point to make sure that it's on the correct side of those cord stays and everything's looking hunky-dory. And then you just continue. Weave on some loose strands, tighten the shit out of it, make sure that those strands are a little bit apart. I'll explain why that is. If the strands are all touching on the timber, they're naturally going to be held apart on that center seam. And so what you're going to get is diagonals. As you start to lay down more and more strands and then tighten them, you're going to have the strands sitting in a bit of a diagonal, touching each other on the timber part, but then in the middle seam, being held apart from each other by a cord thickness. And you don't want that, and the reason is because then when you come through and you tighten that center part, then what was diagonal is going to go straight, and you're going to add more length as a result, and so they're going to become a bit loose. Okay, so if you keep them apart slightly, that's the way you get maximum tightness of the cord when you tighten it all up at the end. Get your weaving spike and just go for it there. Get it all nice and snugged up together. You want to make sure that it all sits in a straight line, so have a look at it from the top and make sure that first line is all in line with those cord stays, and then everything else is kind of straight. Because what you might notice is that it's a bit wonky, like this, the center part will sit out slightly, or it'll sit that side slightly, or maybe the whole thing's a bit skewy. So you just use your weaving spike to just kind of manipulate the cord and get it all into a straight line and looking nice and straight. You'll also notice on the side rails here, the cord might have some spots where it's sitting on a bit of a diagonal, so just once again get the weaving spike and just kind of like straighten it all up, if that makes sense. Sorry I say like so much, I can't help it. It's just like this problem that I've got. Now I thought I'd show you this as well in case you need to do a join. You might not, by the way, but if you need to, this is what to do. I try to imagine where I would like the knot to be. You don't have to tie it on the underside of the stool, you can just pull that knot through once it's already been tied. Tie a reef knot. It's just a granny knot one way, and then the other way for the next one. You can leave the little tag ends around about, about an inch long, thereabouts. You just tighten that sucker up, give it a good hard sort of yank. And then, as I discussed before, you just pull it through the central bit there. There you go, now it's on the underside, but you do want to neaten it up a little bit. So this is a special little trick that I like to do. So give it a good hard yank, get it tight, get it into its final position. This is as tight as it will be, okay? This is where it will sit now, that's its final location. So get it there, clip it off, flip the stool, and then you can start to tidy it up a little bit on the underside. This is a pretty easy process. You just use your weaving spike and you just stab it in around about where each tag end of that knot is. So there'll be one coming out here, one coming out there. You just stab it through the cord in around about that spot, and you just turn it around and poke it through. It doesn't have to be perfect, because when the next strand comes along, it'll kind of butt up against the knot and they won't be able to come back out again. So that's how it works. And then you just continue on. Bob's your bloody uncle, right? Now when you get towards the end there, it's going to become kind of tight to get the shuttle through, okay? You won't be able to flip it anymore so that it's going through straight. You might just want to do it on a little bit of an angle. I find that sort of works best. So just use the corners of the shuttle to kind of help it to glide through a little bit. But once you get too close to the end, it's just going to become a nightmare. So I usually just wind the rest of the cord off the shuttle, and then I'm kind of just pulling it through. Same thing, same figure of eight pattern, but you're just pulling it through by hand instead of having it on the shuttle. So it's pretty basic. Once again, same sort of deal, using your weaving spike to kind of to bed those strands down together. Now, when do you finish? As you've probably guessed, you started on those cord stays and you just want to finish on the cord stays. So once you get there and you've used your weaving spike and you've bedded it all nicely together, it's all nice and tight, it's all nice and crisp, and then it's up against that cord stay. So you can see there I'm feeling for the cord stay. You maybe do one more strand just so it's nice and snug. And once it's snug up against both of those cord stays, you can flip it over, make sure that it all looks nice under there. And then you just want to back that black screw with the cup washer off in the same way as you did for the start of the project. So back it off to around about the height of the cord, or maybe a little bit higher. Once again, you want to wrestle that fiddly little fucking cup screw up. It's a pain. Don't give me a negative review just because of the cup washer, okay? I know it's a 1-star component, but I think the rest of the project over-delivers, quite frankly. Personally, I'm not biased. And then once again, as you did with the first one, you want to get a loop of cord. And this time, the same thing again. You want to have the main line coming in from that central seam on the right-hand side of the screw, and then on the leg side, the outside side of the screw is the tag end. You can sort of see it there. And you see I'm cranking the absolute ever-living shit out of it and then tighten that black screw up. You see I'm even pulling that tag end over a little bit just to keep the two strands nice together so they don't kind of fan out and come out, all right? Now, once you've got that tightened, you can just chop it off at around about 4 or 5 inches and then just tuck the tag end away inside the Danish cord, just there like you saw. And that's it. I'm not going to show you how it looks. You can see what yours looks like when you weave yours. It's a little bit like birthing a baby. It's a beautiful surprise. This is being serious. I really am grateful to you guys because you helped me get this off the ground and you've been bloody legends, super patient, super kind, super nice, and I love you for it. Thank you, and come again.